Hey everyone. So I'm super excited to finally have my first podcast, and you're listening today. I have been talking about doing a podcast for so many years, I want to say. I just have a lot of experience to share, and I feel like a lot of people love to kind of learn from me. So, this is my attempt at doing my first podcast. As you can tell, I am laying on my bed. So, this is my bedroom. I have a cool little, moon tapestry behind me. I like vibes. That's kind of my thing is just always having a nice atmosphere, nice aesthetic. But I just kind of decided to keep it casual for this one just because it's my first time doing this, and I kind of wanted to take the pressure off of perfection. And I think that's honestly why I have taken so long to start a podcast, to do my workshops, to do educational courses, is because I have this idea of like everything has to be right before I can actually launch things. And now I'm kind of leaning into, you know what, I have all this information to give and I need to share it with everyone. So I'm going to do it in whatever way I can, and I'm going to just get the information out there. So, for those of you that know me, you know that my name is Sara. For those that are new, have never heard of me, I own a wedding photography and cinematography company called This Modern Love. I came up with that name back in high school when I started to get like dabble into photography. And today's episode, I'll kind of give you some background information about where I came from, how I got started into photography, and kind of my whole journey through it and how I got to where I am today. So we'll kind of get started with that. But as a child and teenager, I was very shy. I am the youngest of five. So I didn't like to get attention and that kind of stuff, but oftentimes I kind of felt like I wasn't, often being like heard or like seen because, when you grow up in a big family, everyone's kind of doing their own thing, everyone's busy, I used to be like begging for attention from my mom, which she tells this story all the time that like I would beg her to like, um, have her sit with me and paint and do all these arts and crafts. And she would just be like, oh my God, I need to put you into some kind of preschool or something because you're just consuming so much time and you want me to like give you so much attention. She just didn't have it in her. So, at an early age, I kind of resorted to being very shy, very withdrawn. I couldn't even really talk to people one on one without having like extreme anxiety and nervousness and feeling like I wasn't adequate, that I couldn't voice what I really wanted to say. So I just kind of always kept things inside. And, over time, I was like, you know what? I kind of have always loved the arts. I've loved being like crafty, drawing, anything that was related to being creative was like me. So over time, when I went to high school, I was still pretty shy. I was kind of like one of the weird kids, actually more like on the gothic side, like full black outfits, fishnets, and just, I'm misunderstood and that kind of thing. So I decided to take a photography class because I thought it would be a good way to hang out with my friends and learn something new about photography. And the cool thing with photography is that like you could hide, like it was a way for me to hide behind the camera and just take pictures sneakily and like not have to really like talk to people, and I could just be artsy and creative. So really I got into it because of that. And over time, I started really enjoying it, and I wanted to kind of make that a job. And so I started looking at jobs, working in retail and that kind of thing, not really finding like I fit in really good there. But I decided to go to a portrait studio because I was like, what better way to, learn photography than being in a studio? And what I didn't know is that portrait studios were full of babies and toddlers and young kids and families and grumpy parents and that kind of stuff. And I took it solely because I just really wanted to get into photography. And I took that job. My boss at the time was kind of like not sure to hire me because she was like, you seem like you're really shy. I don't think you're like outgoing or anything. And I wasn't. Like, I remember one of my first interview questions was, if I was a screaming, crying 2-year old, how would you make me laugh and get me to smile? And like being the youngest of 5, I wasn't really around kids. I actually didn't like kids. When I was around my cousins' kids and that kind of stuff, I would get annoyed, go into the other room and like just be like, God, these kids are so annoying. And just never really was around it. So when she asked me that, I was like, and I picked up a toy or something and I just kind of shook it. And she was like, well, I probably shouldn't hire you because, you don't look like you'll be good with kids, but I need people. So I'm hiring you. So she took a chance on me. And I'm so glad she did, because that job literally changed my life. That job pretty much broke me out of my shell, because what happens is you have to get out of your comfort zone. And that's really tough to do, especially at that age of like 17, 18, where you are deathly shy, when you are in high school, you're going through like not fitting in, not really having the finding the right friends, or like if you like boys and stuff, they're not liking you back. And you're just dealing with this like inferiority complex. And so being in this environment around other people just really forced me to get comfortable with myself, get comfortable with being an ass and like laughing and making kids around me laugh. And then honestly, that was probably my first like experience with the energy and stuff, is because when I noticed like I wasn't grumpy and I wasn't like pissed off and stuff, and I was more fun and lighthearted and I was having a good time, then the kids lightened up and I got better pictures, which actually that's like really deep if I think about it, because I never associated my energy work until more recently in the last few years. But actually, that was probably the first time I really understood that, like, how much that impacts everything. Because you would see people come in, like parents who have, kids that were autistic, or like something, was difficult in their family dynamic, or just, you would notice tension right away with couples and with families, like something's off, and then the session would go terrible. But then you notice like really great sessions where it's like everyone's bubbly and full of love, and like those would be pretty amazing to shoot too. So I ended up doing that for a couple of years and just kind of really getting comfortable with it, working my way up to manager position. And then it was feeling really good. I got really used to it. I was great at sales. And I learned over time, like how much I was so comfortable with people and how I loved and thrived off of everyone's energy. And like, actually, I thought I was an introvert for so many years. And I realized I'm way more of an extrovert. Like, I love to talk. I love to get interaction with people and just really like feed off their energy and stuff. So that job totally did transform me. That's why I do recommend, when you are like in these early ages of just kind of like figuring out what you want to do, is like, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to try something different that's really gonna challenge you and make you come out of your shell, because that can actually change the whole trajectory of your life. And I'm like a case study of that, because had I not taken that job, my whole life could have been so different. I would have never even opened myself up to the point where I couldn't, be at these big events with hundreds of people that are looking to me for direction and leading a team, or, just having this company that's really turned into something that's so beautiful. So I really go back in my head and I thank like everything for like being able to thank the universe for being able to guide me in the directions that it did, give me the opportunities that I did. While I was at the studio, I was kind of, getting some interest into, weddings and that kind of thing, but didn't really know where to begin with it. I knew I loved photography. I knew I was good at it, but I didn't know how to get into weddings. And this was kind of challenging for me because to start a business from scratch with nothing, under your plate and stuff other than like shooting families and that kind of thing, it's hard to do that. So what I did is I took my mom and we went to like Global Mall, which is like a very famous Indian mall in Atlanta. And I was like, you know what? Maybe because I'm from Pakistan, like someone from India or something like that that does wedding photography might want to hire me. And so we walked in there and we saw this photographer that was there with his wife, and we kind of walked in and I just pretty much asked for a job, and I was like, I love photography. I would love to be able to work with you. And, pretty much asked for him to be my mentor. And his name is Vinod, and he took a chance on me too. So again, another great opportunity, a great experience having someone that was doing so many Indian weddings, and he was getting to the point where he couldn't do it alone. So it's like I came in perfect timing, and then I could kind of share my experience with posing and helping people get comfortable with him. And then I was learning so much from him at these weddings as well, like how early you have to get up, how prepped you need to be, pretty much how the day goes, and how it's just you're running wild in terms of like things are here and then they move over here and then you're like back over there. So it can be chaotic. So I'm really, really, really glad that I had that opportunity with him, because we worked together for about 2 to 3 years. And it was such a great time because, we would travel together. We would, shoot different weddings in Atlanta. And I just really soaked it all in that, like, you know what, I'm getting paid to take pictures, and like, this is a job. And to me, that blew my mind. It's just because like jobs in my head, my friends were working like at Macy's, or they were doing in the restaurants and that kind of stuff. They weren't really like having so much fun. And here I am, like just going to Florida. I remember that was like one of my first weddings with him. Me and his son went to Florida with him, and that was just wild to me that like people would pay for your travel to like go somewhere and take their pictures. Like that's a thing. And it very much is a thing. And actually I do that all the time now. So it's funny how things come full circle, but really when you look at like your past and all the opportunities that came your way and all the people who gave you those blessings of giving you a chance and, kind of steering you in that direction, between him and the portrait studio, that was like my prime training to pretty much become a wedding photographer. So after some time, I decided that I would have to, let go of that job because I was moving to New York. I had received a marriage proposal. And that's a whole podcast in itself, to be honest. that's a few other podcasts to get into that. But it was a really hard thing to do, to break away from that job, because he had become so attached to me and me with him and his wife. And we were like going to like bridal shows together and like figuring out different other companies to work with. And it was just such a cool collaborative thing. And I really loved having that kind of family environment to work in. So, as difficult of a decision as that was, I had to make that major move. And that kind of then forced me to start my own thing of like, I had come up with the name back in high school because I was just like, I don't want to have like Sarah K. Shake Photography or like my initials in photography. I wanted something different that stood out. And I remember sitting with my friend and we're just kind of hanging out, listening to music, and the song comes on from Block Party and it's called This Modern Love. And I was like, well, what about This Modern Love? And she was like, that's a good one. And I just stuck with it. I was like, you know what? I really liked the tone of it, because my whole thing was like, in the past, and especially back then when I was growing up, most of the wedding photographers were very traditional, had like a very old school kind of style. Like even Vinod was very traditional. He had his way of doing things, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what they were taught, and that's what was normal. So my whole take on it was like, why not be different? Why not have something that's a little more modern, more timeless, more editorial type of vibe? And that's what I kind of always stuck to, was just doing something that was not like everyone else. I always want to be different. I'm an Aquarius too, by the way. So that's something major with us, that we love to shine. We love to, you know, like just really be different and embrace our individualistic selves. So, and that's what I did with this company. I really wanted to turn it into that. So, going back to that, I ended up leaving the job with him, and it was really kind of bittersweet. And he felt sad. I felt sad too, but like that kind of did really force me to start working more with my own stuff, getting hired to do like small events, baby showers, all these different things. I still really didn't feel like super comfortable doing weddings, just because I was always like a second or third shooter. And then I reached out to another like national company that they outsource people to shoot weddings. So you would send your portfolio, and they loved the fact that I knew about Indian weddings because they didn't really have anyone like that. So with this company, I ended up working for them for about 5 to 6 years, and I was a second shooter. I transitioned into a lead shooter, but really with this, I became so comfortable and so like, just in my element, because I was getting paid to shoot all these weddings, and I never had to like deal with the client or like edit the photos. I could just pick the ones I wanted to edit and keep it on my website and that kind of thing. But like, it really helped me get comfortable with like guiding, posing, that kind of stuff. But one thing that I didn't lack was like any coaching. No one really told me what I was doing wrong. And for a while, it really bothered me, because I'm like, I don't know how I'm performing. I don't know if people are liking this, if they're hating their pictures. And that was at a time where I was just kind of like shooting wild, like crazy angles, thinking it looked so different, but really it just like was super distorted and messed up the whole shot and stuff. I was doing a lot of weird things. And I really, in hindsight, wish that someone would have like sat down with me and been like, hey, you maybe want to straighten your lines, because that does help everything follow a nice straight way. And you don't have like people being in the corner looking all awkward and stuff, and weird angles of the face and that type of thing. So I really just didn't get the coaching or guidance that I really felt like I needed. So again, with that, I kept working on my own brand. I kept posting, and eventually word of mouth got like my workload even more. Like, people were reaching out to me. They're like, oh, you're the girl with the camera. Everyone talks about you. We need to hire you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, this is really turning into something. And just over time, it kind of transformed. And that was really amazing to kind of witness, because from seeing something that was just like initially one idea where it was just like, oh, I don't know if this is going to really turn into anything or what this is, but I'm just going to follow it. I'm going to see what works. And I'm glad I stuck through, because it really did get me to a point where like I have a full team of so many amazing photographers and videographers, and even like an internal team helping with sales and a VA, and just like so much of a bigger concept. And it's not just me, and so many people depend on me. So many people love working with me and being a part of this like solid ass team. And that's one thing that I really pride myself on, is just handpicking the best people that really are in line with my vision, and they understand what's expected of them. They understand how to be professional, how to get the shots, and just internally like grateful for having this solid ass team. So if you are part of my team and you're listening to this, thank you, because I wouldn't be where I am without you guys. Because shooting weddings is a very, I think, I don't want to say hard, because it's not that hard. It's just, it's a journey and it's a process. And there are days where like sometimes you don't know if you're going to get through, because it's just like back to back. You haven't gotten breaks. You haven't gotten time to eat. You haven't even had time to use the bathroom. And you're just like, you know what, you're there and you're focused in that couple's world. You're there to be present for them, because that's how they're going to remember it. So you can't really be present for yourself in a sense. You're like, they're channeling what's going on with them. So you want to have the right people by your side that you can really depend on you, and you can kind of uplift each other, raise each other's vibes, be there for them. And having that is just so amazing, because I remember when I used to work alone, and that was miserable to me. Like now, when I look back at that, even now when I shoot something alone, if it's like something small and I'm like, oh, I can do it, I still have a good time no matter what I'm doing, but it's not as fun. It's so much fun when you have like someone with you and someone's kind of hyping you up, or, it just livens the mood and helps you just kind of forget like you're working. It's like you're just hanging out and taking awesome pictures. So that's one thing I highly recommend, is finding your tribe, finding your team. Don't feel like you have to do everything yourself, because you don't. I think a lot of us get stuck into this mentality of like, oh, I can make all the money, then I don't have to pay anyone. I can just, like, say you're charging $3,500 for a wedding. I'm going to keep that 3,500 and I'm going to work my ass off, instead of like, paying another shooter like 500. You still make 3,000, but also you've helped someone by making them 500, but also like, think how your workload lightens up, how you don't have to worry about getting everything, or you can miss certain shots because they got your back. So that's one thing it took me many years to understand, is like hiring people is an investment, because it's like, you don't want to be doing things alone in life. I'm sorry. There's certain things, maybe certain jobs you can do alone, but for me personally, thriving off of people's energy and just being able to like really embrace being who I am and loving what I'm doing, I love working with people. I love that one-on-one interaction. I love just social interaction, all that good stuff. So it's definitely, good to work with an awesome team. Man, the sun is really coming out now, which I think is a good sign, because it's been super ugly and gloomy today, but low key, I loved it. Um, so I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. I don't want to talk forever. And I think that was a good start. And hopefully I'll be on soon and keep this like a regular thing. Thanks for tuning in, guys.